Thank you. I
I'm
was just gonna
sorry.
say that before we get into anything, start that. And Cynthia, was there any public comment submitted to the committee?
No public comment.
No public comment. I'll give everybody a chance to just review the minutes from our last meeting. We covered a number of topics, and thank you, Cynthia, for the minutes you supplied. If there are any, if there are no other changes or comments, I'll take a motion when you're ready.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Diana. It looks like we have Prabhas as a second. All in favor?
I wasn't there, but
Correct. Yes.
do you think I should abstain? I'll abstain.
I think we're good. You got
Okay.
thank you. So a lot, actually, when I was looking at the agenda, I was thinking that everything, this all sort of hangs together. Talking about, really, this is the point where we start looking about the composition of the board. So, and helps to reflect a little bit on our bylaws, right? And what constitutes our group. So it's good that we're doing this all together. And if we could jump in on this, if Sean is able to join us, that would be great too, because I want his voice on what he sees as our needs for implementing the strategic plan. But maybe we can start in this conversation. Item number 4 that's on our agenda is really, as I recall, Cynthia, this is Amanda's position that she vacated. And so it's a elected position that goes to the annual meeting in June, correct? So we have a few months here where we have some time. So the question is, how do we do that? How do we fill this for a short period of time before the election? Or do we leave it vacant?
Frank, I also did look back and we, Bonnie Kamiga's position too is, I went back to check to see if there were any that were till June of 2022, and hers was also to June of 2022, June 30th. So there's a potential to fill 2 vacancies.
These are both elected positions.
Yes.
Can I, I'm sorry. I have to sort of reload myself. Before I got this bit.
That's
So
okay.
we can use up to 15 members. Right?
Correct.
3 are UConn appointments, and that's Sean, Kyle, and me.
Yep. Yes.
And because Kara is now the ex officio member, right?
Correct.
That's appointed by the president. Then we have 3 town positions, appointments, right? So that's
Yes.
Brian Coleman, Ryan.
Yep.
Who's the third?
Steve Farino.
Oh, Steve. Okay. All right.
So we have 4, and then we have, I'm sorry.
And then Tony's the ex officio.
Right. And Prabhas is the student.
And then Prabhas is a student. So then now we can do up to 6 elected positions. We have Emily and Mario.
And that's it.
And then Amanda was the one that is now open. So if I do my math right, we've got 4 positions.
Yes.
But
But some of those other ones, I went back and looked, Frank, we never filled up to 15, I don't think. If we did, it was a couple of years ago. So but the 2 that could be filled until the next election would be Amanda's and Bonnie's.
Okay, Amanda and Bonnie's. Now,
And we have one interested party that I mentioned in the email I sent to everybody, but not until June 30th.
correct.
He's
So
fine.
at the last, so you're referring to Ron Shuren,
Yes,
who is in the neighborhood in Willowbrook,
yes,
certainly active, very, very familiar with University President's office as well, active in town. And so as an interested party, and he could start, so he will be on the, now, as I understand, he'll be on the slate of electors for the June meeting.
yes.
Okay, so for an elected position. So, all right. So that still leaves 4 positions.
That leaves 3.
All right, because you have Emily is continuing.
Emily's
Right.
continuing
Yeah.
and Mario's not
I'll
up yet.
confirm that Emily was continuing. You have Ron then, and then Mario is continuing.
Correct.
Diana?
Yeah, his doesn't end yet.
Diana first and then Betsy.
And you and I had spoken the other day, and I was trying to come up with some ideas as far as bringing in that school group, and the principal Lauren Rodriguez is meeting with all concerned like parties for the new Mansfield Elementary School, all the PTOs. And this is, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. It's not totally formed, but we can, maybe somebody can add or it can grow. I thought about, could we just through that group, since there's one big, there's always all these different presidents, now there'll be one big group. Can we ask Lauren if maybe part of their whole recruitment, like, is a Mansfield Elementary School liaison that sits on the board? Like, so, we have all these different presidents, and just, we can just see that, and that could either be elected or it could be part of the town appointed. I don't know how we would want to, but I thought it really would not be a bad thing to have a parent that's in that Mansfield Elementary School, as part of our board, to know what those families want, what they're interested in, and I didn't know if that was maybe a way we could keep it consistent, that we have that help in filling that position. That was just
Yeah.
floating in my mind.
Yeah, that's I didn't think of it. That it's a good point about the combining of the different groups and what opportunity that might present. So
Right, 'cause
welcome,
we-
Sean. Thank you for coming.
Because we have three
Let's hold.
presidents right now.
Right. Let's hold that thought. I don't want to miss Betsy's had a thought too.
Now, my thought was just this. Is Ron, does he not want to be on until June, or is he somebody we could appoint to one of these vacancies and then elect again in June?
Very good question. I think that was floated as an idea, even to invite him to our meetings so he gets into the rhythm. But he does have a conflict. I think he had a conflict with a class. He is teaching. He's still in political science and was teaching a class this spring semester. So it really didn't make sense through May. So he said, let's just wait until June.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome,
Sean.
Sean.
Yeah, welcome. We just dove right into and some of these agenda items are all related to board composition. And so we were just a little bit of free form, but our focus really is on the first section. It was, do we fill Amanda Hanslick's open position from now? We could advance somebody to the board immediately so that they could sort of run out that term to June, or do we leave it open? So that was the immediate question at hand. But if it relates at all to board composition and bylaws, whatever, it's open game right now.
Hypothetically, if we were to fill that position, try to fill that position, what happens in June to that person that's filling the position? Does it just roll into a new term or does it expire?
They could, well, there's two. They could just fulfill that term, or we have up to 3 additional positions that they, if somebody sort of took it for a test drive and liked it, they could continue on. So it could either be used 2 ways. One is to recruit somebody in, right, and let them experience a little bit and then put them as up for election, or to seek somebody sort of to fill the gap and make sure that we have all the voices that we need at this time that we're so involved in strategic planning. So
She was very strategic in that she was from E.O. Smith, right? Is there anyone from E.O. Smith we would consider for that seat?
you know, the challenge here is getting the actual names, right? Diana and I were talking about this, like you have to be specific, or I like, Diana, what you were going with, asking a group like a PTO to give us a name, like have them discuss it and then advance a name for us to consider.
So just,
The other-
John, just to catch you up a little bit, because I think, so with Amanda's position, she was actually, it's till 2024. So the way that it would have to work is if somebody was appointed, as Frank said, to fill her vacancy, the board's allowed to do that until the next annual meeting. Then if that person wanted to continue, they'd have to be elected for 1 year, then they'd have to be re-elected for a regular 3-year term. Now, Bonnie Kamiga, I realized, her term is also vacant. Her term actually ends in June. She's been off for a while now, but that vacancy wasn't necessarily filled.
Diana?
Now, and Frank, you had mentioned something yesterday about just filling that position with people that might have some knowledge of what's gone on or happened, you know, past members or whatever. Is that something that can be done? Like, is that helpful, or is that something that we can look at? Did you look into that more? I don't know if you can just put in a person for those few months and it doesn't matter. Do they have to be somebody that was a board member, or can they be just somebody familiar with strategic plans, or is there any criteria, I guess, to do a fill-in position?
So, and Cynthia, I'm going to ask for your help on this one, but and it goes back to the counsel that we got from John on this. The governance committee can advance a position. It would still have to go to the board for approval of that, for that directorship, but that we could look to previous board members, even ones that were emeritus members, right? Because they're not going up for election. They're helping us fill out a term. And in some ways, I think there's an certain advantage to having emeritus members, especially ones who remained active and know sort of the rhythm, what's going on. Then there's no orientation, there's no getting up to speed, like you're hitting the ground running and can finish out that term, giving you an opportunity to hopefully build a pipeline of potential candidates for the election. So right now, as our bylaws are, you can serve 2-3 consecutive 3-year terms, and then you have to rotate off the board. But I think there's but we can then have those emeritus members serve for these remainder terms. So it's a conversation whether if that's the direction we want to go, and then because we've got a pool now, whereas before we didn't have that many emeritus members, or certainly ones that were staying active and attuned to what was going on in the downtown. Now we do. We're very fortunate to have this. So it's something to consider. What are your thoughts? Luckily we have 2 emeritus members right here. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good idea. If you need someone to fill a position, to have someone that you don't have to bring up to date, train, da, 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 as long as that person has been at least somewhat still connected, so they know what's going on. The other thing is, I think that I agree that I think it's very important to get someone from the school age parent population involved, because I think we need to get people who will get information out to various groups, about what we're doing, so that we get a broader support than sometimes we get. So that's my thought on that.
One of the terms that was used was micro influencer, right? And the strategic plan. That's what we need. We need somebody who knows
Yes,
groups that we're trying to attract and knows how to step into a meeting or use social media or whatnot. So that would be ideal, especially for the elected positions. It might be a longer term, but I think when we have an opening and we have dedicated members who aren't going to affect our quorum negatively, they show up to meetings and things. I think it's great to have their voice.
I do too. And I think it's great, Frank, to have a voice from a different section of the population. That sometimes I found, especially when I was mayor, that somebody would come in from a totally different group and perspective and bring up something that I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah.
Or, or realized was making an influence in the community, or, bothering the community, whatever. So I think if we can look at those, I know Cynthia's tried like heck to get people from the business community involved, and we have a heck of a time doing that. But I think, getting someone either from the regional high school or the new elementary school is all going to be together. And so if we could get someone in that area, I think it would be very helpful.
Prabhas and Cynthia and I had a call last week too. It made me think as we're excited, and that's on the agenda, talking about the student rep. But boy, I'd love to see a nice pool of potential students. And I don't know if we had one that sort of rose to the top for the student rep. Is it out of the possibility to, if we had a second runner up, who was pretty good, could they be in one of the other slots? We talked about maybe adding some more student voices to the group. Has anybody? Yes, Diana.
They could be elected. I mean, there's no reason that we couldn't elect if they're a freshman or sophomore. That's a 3-year position right there. I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, I think it would be great if it's because in the past we have had where we've, had more than one great candidate. So, it's tough to turn somebody away that's interested and so vested in the community.
Is there any risk here, because they are typically elected for 3-year terms, that they're unable to fulfill, or maybe they're a junior, right? And it's only going to be a year, maybe. Is there a risk to us making an unsettled board? What do you guys feel?
It's no more of a risk than not having anybody in the position.
Okay. I'd like to see, and again, we'll get back into this a little bit later, see what we are able to generate for student interest in this. And this is another area where I'd like to have our emeritus members get involved too, in helping with sort of the mentoring too, helping students get up to speed too. It's it's a lot to learn quick, and to have an impact. I think they could certainly provide some voice, but any of our new members that are coming on, because the strategic plan is a little complex, it would be great to have emeritus members involved in the meeting with new board members or new committee members, to help them get a sort of a orientation supplemental to what Cynthia and the team provide. So let's go back to our agenda. What do you want to do for the remainder of Amanda's term? Is there a name you want to advance?
I would just say, Frank, just to keep in mind, so we're really just talking about 3 months.
Correct.
So if you
Right.
put it on the board agenda for Thursday, so it fills it, well, 4 months
April,
technically. Yeah, but
right.
June 1st is the annual meeting. So it's March, April, May. Yeah, March, April, May, June.
So I guess it's a two-part question, right? Do we try to fill this position for a short period of time or not? And then if we say yes, then who? Prabhas?
I think we could take the opposite approach and maybe, rather than filling the spot for 3 months from one of those groups that we mentioned, just taking the time to establish the relationships with those groups and then creating some long-term pipelines for the board to be filled, just so that, if we say we want a name from EO or the PTO, I think that would be a challenging thing to do in a short time. We don't want to rush it, and we don't want to have someone come on under the assumption that they're, a rushed candidate. We don't want that. But if we take the time out now, especially with the strategic plan to start building out pipelines for ourselves, I think that will have the better effect on the long-term composition. But I see it both ways. I understand the importance of trying to fill the spot, but I think if we build it at the top, it'll be easier for the next few years to get some more talent coming in.
Appreciate that. That's good. Any other thoughts?
I'm sorry, I got interrupted with a phone call.
Yeah,
Can you just quickly tell me what the,
sure. If I could try to summarize, Prabhas, I think it was to focus our attention on the annual meeting and building a pipeline over these next couple of months for potential to fill up those slots with members, and I think not worry about trying to get somebody in to fill this temporary slot of a couple of months to fulfill Amanda's. Right now, we're very fortunate in that Diana and Betsy, Steve, you've all maintained some contact. So I feel like we have your voice. If you want to serve and vote, we can move that forward. I think we have a vehicle for doing that, but I don't know that it would be absolutely necessary. I think the most important thing to what Prabhas is saying, and it may be see if we have a consensus here, is that we just want to focus on the permanent elected positions, the longer term.
I think that's probably smart because I haven't been as active during COVID as I was prior to COVID. Being an old lady, I've been pretty cautious. So, but I get the feeling we don't have people knocking down our doors to be on the board. Is that right? So then maybe we should focus on, getting a couple of, what do we need, Cynthia? 3 people?
3.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, 3.
Yeah, then I think maybe we should focus on that.
Okay.
I agree
Excellent.
with Prabhas, although I usually do agree with Prabhas.
Diana and Sean? It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to help. I just, I've already I've signed up to do Thursdays from here until June for running clubs. So, for me, if I wouldn't want to commit to anything because my Thursdays now are running club from our last one. So I wouldn't be able to I probably won't be able to make a lot of the board meetings the next 3 months anyway. So that's not very helpful. I mean, I'm always obviously.
That means, yeah, you're free for governance then. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's wrap up the discussion on item number 4 with a general understanding that we're deciding to pass on trying to fill Amanda's open position for the remainder of her term and focus on strategies for finding someone to put forward at the June meeting for a full election. So that leads into the discussion, the next item 5. And if we start with Prabhas, some of the things that we had talked about, you helped us and Cynthia advance the application process. We talked about strategies for getting the application out to different groups to advertise and promote that so that we would, and then Cynthia, could you just run through, I'm sorry, I didn't have your email that had the deadlines, sort of our timeline on this.
So our goal right now, I gave Kathleen some edits based on our conversation, the conversation that Frank and Prabhas and I had. So she is working on redoing that by Monday. And then on Monday, the March 21st, we will send it, Prabhas and I will release it to our various groups that we identified. Prabhas thought it made more sense to do it after spring break because people will be distracted. And then applications will be due Wednesday, April 6th. On Thursday, April 7th, I will look at the applications and send them on to the governance committee for review. And yeah, it gets a little complicated anyway. And then I'm sorry, I would send it on April 11th, and then I'd start calling people on the 12th, and then hopefully we would finalize the interviewees on the 14th, and then the governance committee would hold interviews on the 25th of April.
Okay.
There's a break, there's the school break in there where I'm also out of town, so. But
Okay.
I guess the key dates are application released on Monday, March 21st, and interviews Monday, April 25th at the regular governance committee meeting.
And this is for new board members.
This is for the new student rep.
Student.
Oh, student rep, just the
Yeah,
student.
yeah.
rep.
Frank
Okay.
he flipped, yeah, the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And so we'll see, Prabhas, could you just mention some of the ideas that you had in terms of the groups that we might actually push out to? We talked about the learning communities and some others. I thought that was good.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this was to get some groups that have some, high volume of students, but also some community already built. So the learning communities are, if we're trying to get freshmen and sophomores onboarded to the board, I think it's like 48 or 50% of all freshmen are in learning communities. So that's a good target. The school business obviously they have like weekly newsletters. They have a strong volume of students. Same with the School of Engineering. The Worth Institute is always putting out opportunities for students. So, trying to get these established little pipelines and pull them to get their attention for the board position is kind of the high level strategy. And I think Cynthia broke down a list of who I'll be reaching out to, who she'll be reaching out to. And then we'll also plug it in like the daily newsletter, just so that at the minimum, all students can see it, and then we'll have a little bit more of a targeted approach in the coming weeks. So that's the plan.
And some of the residence halls nearby too that have some of the learning communities, whether it's over in the alumni quad or the ones on 195 that are geographically close, which is helpful. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Worth Institute, but that's our entrepreneurship and innovation program. And I have been very impressed by some of the students I've interacted there. I mean, just amazing, very marketing minded at times, right? Results driven. It's actually some of the exact things that we're looking for here. So if we're able to get a pool of candidates, I'm really looking forward to getting at least one involved in the board, and maybe other aspects, other volunteer needs that we have as a downtown. So thank you, Prabhas. But thinking, Diana, going back to your point about the school systems and getting families, the ideal candidate, their oldest is going to be in 7th grade, right? If they have potential to be here for 6 years, that oldest son or daughter maybe would be at the end of high school. And sometimes you don't realize that when you're in the in the middle of things and you're racing back and forth to elementary school or the middle school. Your life is pretty hectic, but eventually these families are going to be very much involved with going downtown, going to E.O. Smith, and so I think that's part of the reason why we want to be looking at specifically at parents and volunteers who are active in the elementary school. Yeah.
So do you want me, because I know Lauren's having a meeting, I think the 14th. Do you want me to engage with Lauren and see what she thinks of the idea, if we can go through them? And I've got some people in mind from just my school, if they don't end up as the president of the whole PTO, that would be amazing, and very social media minded. I'm happy to go to that meeting with her and talk to people. Do you want me to pursue that?
I think let me just get a thumbs up or yeah, from Betsy. Yeah, I'm very supportive. I think it's got to be a direct ask. Look for nominations. Those who are social media savvy would be great. Let's try to see what you can come up with. If you can present that, that'd be great. Think about the why. Use your story of why you've been so involved, why it was important to you, but then also the why of why now, as we're going through a strategic plan, thinking about the sort of the evolution of the downtown, its composition, its involvement, its role in the community of bringing people back together after a pandemic. There's all those things that make this a very motivating time to want to be on the board, and to have somebody who's committed to the town and the school system. Because I think going back to, we had tapped somebody at E.O. Smith specifically because the relationship of just being right across the street, and there's so much involvement. And we learned that in the environmental scan of the strategic plan that, the high school plays a big part in our activities in the downtown. So getting somebody early would be great.
Yeah.
Do you need anything then, Diana, to do that or for any of us? Does anybody need anything in terms of who we are and what we do?
I mean, I have a lot of those things that we've used at the different events and things. If anything's changed, if they're updated, those basic forms, I'm happy to take those along. I think I will first talk to Lauren as the principal to make sure she's okay with us, doing that. I don't think I need to go through a Kelly or Peter yet. I think I'll talk to Lauren and see what she's
Okay.
as the principal of the whole building to see. I think she's going to think it's a great idea, but I'll do that first and I'll let you know. But I think I have everything we need, basic information wise.
Great. And if anybody has any questions, they can, certainly call on any member of the board would be an advocate to help answer questions. Cynthia?
Diana, I can send you at the appropriate time after you talk to Lauren. I mean, I can send you the 2 fact sheets and the nomination form, just so you have that. And maybe the board expectations, not necessarily to hand out, but just so you have them.
That would be great. And you can send them to me ahead of time. I'll talk to, I think their meeting
Okay.
is the 14th. So I think I'd like to talk to her before that. Because that's, I think all the presidents of all the 3 schools will be there, and, they'll start forming what they're gonna do, and we can maybe kind of see if there's somebody that sticks out at that point, that is like, if they have a position, a board position that they're happy to do instead of the PTO president position. I think it, might work out.
Frank?
Cynthia, is that something you could send out to the full board?
Yes, yeah, I just need
I'd
to
like
double
to
check.
be able to bring it up and have everybody thinking about the nomination form and
Yep,
names and what they could be doing. And I appreciate what Diana and Prabhas have, but raised their hand to go out and meet with talk with groups and get get some names for us. So I'd like everybody to be thinking of that. Betsy?
Is there any reason why we would have to limit it to just one person from that group? I mean, the elementary school is gonna have all 3 schools involved in there. I mean, and these are community parents.
Yep,
Agreed.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Um,
instead of saying, when you're talking to them or whoever talks to them, instead of saying we're looking for a member from this group, say, look for members from this group and see if you have, hopefully we'll have somebody come forward, or maybe more than one. That would be good.
Yep.
I think as a governance committee, we want to monitor, think about the composition. We talked about ideally have business owners and other groups. However, we also want to just get new people in.
Yes.
And I think the younger family representation has just not been there. Some of us,
Yes.
like me, I've aged out.
Yeah.
So
I'm ahead of you on that, Frank.
Pravas, did you have something you're going to add?
Just a quick comment on the student discussion. I don't know if Sean or Frank, if you have any interaction with the Career Center, but I feel like that would also be a worthwhile resource to tap into. I know Jim Lowe, the executive director, I sit on a committee with him, but I don't know if we know each other quite yet. So that could be a last option. But if you guys have any connections there, that would be a great place to source some other students as well, because that's
a great
about,
idea. I know Jim pretty well.
Okay.
Happy to put that forward. I can take
That'd
that
be
one
cool.
on and just copy you in on it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
great.
Mike, what about you, Smith? Is that someplace that we should, I know I've reached out a couple of times. I don't know if Sean has any thoughts about the high school or other folks there.
We had, last time we discussed it, we looked at the board list, right? And I think there's how many members of the board, 3 or 4? Some names I think you recognize, like maybe was Nancy one of them?
Yeah,
Silas?
I think Nancy was on the Board of Ed at one point. I don't know if she still is.
And then maybe there was a Jim.
Yeah, I didn't resend the list out.
But it
On
got,
the-
as we were talking about, earlier, it got me thinking, would it be inappropriate to invite one of the assistant principals in? That's something an assistant principal, something an assistant principal would have any interest in? I think they have 2 of them.
Yeah, I don't know them, but I mean, I don't see why not.
I like it. Yeah. What about anybody at the community center? Or affiliated with that?
Well, I do have a suggestion of someone who works at the town.
Okay.
And that's Sarah Dufresne.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Sarah's the head of youth services. She's got one really young child and one who's in the middle school, I think. She's been involved in the movies, the festival committee. She kind of meets that family demographic, lives in town.
Um,
And services, I mean, that's awesome.
yeah, since Cynthia, we've had this running list of like potential board members and volunteers. Have you added that name?
I haven't, since I sent you that list on Friday, I have not added those names that I sent you.
Maybe
I'll have to pull up that list. That list was pretty sparse at this point because we've gone through a few.
right. We've
We've asked a few.
eliminated several. Right.
Yeah. So it probably
So-
isn't the best list, but I think what Sean was talking about, because we kind of separated a couple of years ago between potential board members and potential volunteers. I feel like Nancy might have been under that volunteer list. I'd have to pull it out.
Okay.
Pull it up.
Well, and because business owners are still high on our list of priority. Betsy?
I know Nancy Silander from Joshua's Trust. So if you want me to reach out to her and see if she would have any interest, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think Nancy was on our list, wasn't she, Cynthia?
I think she
Is
was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she is.
No,
That's a
that
good
name.
idea.
He
came-
was, but I wasn't sure if she was on as a volunteer or as a board member.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember Jim's last name, but I thought we had a couple of names on the board, but the Herds came immediately to mind.
Well, we have some time to brainstorm and reach out and try to get specific names that we will add to the list of, in a sense, a pool. And then as we approach the deadline. So what's working back from the meeting? When do we need to know if somebody is a go or not? For taking an elected position? Do you have to have that 45 days ahead?
No, that can be done. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, I'm multitasking to find that list. I mean, that could be, it has to be 12 days, at least 12 days before the annual meeting, which is June 1st. So we could do two separate mail outs. If we have bylaws changes, they have to be 45 days. We have done.
Okay,
that
it's just
once
bylaws change. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you like to do them together, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, the bylaws have to go out by April 15th, and that's right before my vacation.
Okay.
That means they have to go to the board before that, which would be the April board meeting.
Okay. All right, well, let's try to follow up on this. By our next meeting, we'll have some progress towards the student representative. And Diana, if you could report back on what you think, and if you need any additional support on the PTO group, we'll continue to think about other members in the town, whether it's related to the E.O. Smith or the community center or other nonprofits, and try to add, so keep brainstorming the list so that at our next meeting, we can go through that list and see what makes sense to advance. Sean?
Yeah, sorry, Frank, and sorry for the typing at the same time. I didn't realize I was off mute. The young man that works at I think you asked about the community center. Remind me of the young man's name that we gave the award to for his work during the pandemic.
Louis
Lifelong
Goff.
Mansfield. What's that?
Yeah, Louis Goffinet.
Yeah, yeah, Louis. Would he be a good candidate? Do you have any interest? He's a lifelong Mansfield resident, right?
Yeah, maybe.
He teaches at the middle school, right, Diana, now?
Yep.
I think he's in Mansfield now.
Yep, and he's our computer liaison right now. I think he's gonna go back to his middle school teaching position next year, but yeah, between the community center and the middle school, that he could be a good candidate.
Wow. Well, keep these names coming. This is good. This has been productive.
Yeah, I can add all those names, Frank, to that list so
Great.
people can see it between, I could probably do it tomorrow.
I think we have some good strategies for getting some, rebuilding that list. We whittled the prospect pool list down, so I think we're building it back up. Sounds very helpful. And then if, so the next time we meet and sort of review that list, we'll think, well, what are the priority areas we really need to fill? How do we get the diverse voices that we need? And given the remaining composition of our board. Let's close the discussion on that, unless there's anything else that somebody wants to say about board composition. I wanted to move on to the next agenda item, which was a discussion of officers. So we have president is Kyle, vice president is Tony, treasurer is Sean, and secretary is me. So as part of the annual, is this right? The annual meeting, we vote for officers as well?
It happens in the board meeting immediately following the annual meeting, which now
That's
we've been
right.
doing right after the annual meeting in a like separate room.
Okay. And you know, I want to bring this up as looking forward to the next agenda item too, which is review of bylaws. Sean, we've had conversations before about are we using these positions, are we fulfilling what we say we're supposed to be doing according to the bylaws? You know, I think the president and vice president have very specific roles of running the meetings and stuff, but the treasurer and secretary roles, I'm not sure that I'm fulfilling what I need to do fully as a secretary of the board. And happy to, you know, sort of revisit how we do this, and then whether it should be, if there's other candidates for that role, or I'm also happy to continue it on and help it sort of evolve if we need to. Do you have any thoughts about your role as treasurer?
I've come to appreciate that it is what it is. And there's other things, and Cynthia will let me know if she needs anything. I think I was a little insecure for a little while about having the title without any real responsibilities, but I've learned to let certain things go.
Diana?
So it's so funny because that's how I felt when I was reading the president's role. And so that's great, Sean, you figured it out. But I wondered if there is something we put in the bylaws, because there's this list of things for the positions, and they get done by our staff, Cynthia and our staff. Is there something we can put like this role along with, our staff or executive director or something, can we just add something that kind of makes people feel like, okay, if our executive director can't do this, then we've got to be ready to do this, or our staff. Do we want to have that, or just let it go, as Sean said?
So we did do that, as you may recall, with the treasurer position last time, because when we had this discussion, so we added, if I'm remembering this correctly, Sean, together with such other director or directors or staff designated by the board, the treasurer may be required to provide general oversight of employees and agents of the partnership who shall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So it sounds like Diana, because even under the president, it says prepare the agenda.
Right.
So there may be some sentence that, and there may be, it may already be in here, I'm just missing it, but that covers kind of all 4 officer positions.
Yeah, I didn't see it, and that's what I meant, like the same
Yeah.
thing we
Yeah.
had put in.
I'm looking at it quickly now too. So right now, let's just, on this agenda item of officers, I'm not seeing any changes. I'm not predicting any changes for the meeting following the annual meeting, that all 4 officers will remain in those positions.
Right, can you ask Kyle and Tony to confirm?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, add that to the minutes for me to do. With that, the last item is talking about what are items that we want to look at then for the bylaws. Should we look at that section then, if there's anything about the officers then to add sort of what the staff role is? We could do that.
So that's page 11.
11, yeah. I had that item and then you had highlighted another section, Cynthia.
Yeah, so under committees, under the governance committee, which is section 4 of Article 6, the idea of adding the president as a standing member of the governance committee.
Mhm.
Are there any other areas, if we have those 2, is there any other areas that we should be reviewing at this time? Sean, I don't know, you were close to the street sense, and whether there are any no specific recommendations came from them about bylaws, was there?
Only that, well, specific in that rewriting certain sections of it.
Or that we had to make sure we needed to address as a group that may be in conflict with what we've got?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I thought that there was some language in there about the general language about our assessing them periodically as things change within the organization or within the development. But that, I don't know if that was written that I read it or that we talked about it along the way.
We did talk about putting funding into the budget, which you guys will see in April, which the board members see in April, like $2,000 or $3,000 that Kara recommended to have as an annual line item to review the strategic plan. I think maybe that's what you're referring to, Sean.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
That's normal. Okay.
Yes,
Yes. Let's go. Let's take these, if we could just quickly, one at a time, the adding the president as a standing member of the committee. Any thoughts on that? I'm sorry, our president isn't here, but we have a former president. Diana, what is your thoughts about the integration of the 2?
I think it's a good idea to have them on at least on the committee. I mean, I think it's kind of nice that they don't need to always run it, but to have them on the committee to be sure they get all the minutes and to have a say, because there's a lot in governance that goes on that, goes over to the board. And I think it just is, I think it's a lot of information that's really helpful for the president to have.
Yeah, Betsy?
I just think as president of a group, it's important that they be aware of what discussions are in certain committees. And I think governance committee would be one of them. And they can choose how often maybe they want to attend the meetings, but as Diana said, if they get the minutes and get the agendas and so forth, if anything jumps out, they can be aware of it and have input.
Prabhas and Sean, do you have any additional thoughts on this about having the president involved on governance as a standing member? If not, I think we have general consensus here that we want to do this. So Cynthia, maybe you and I can follow up after this and think about the exact wording that we want to add to our bylaws as something that we can propose.
Sounds good.
Okay. The other item about, why don't we also then look at that section with the officers, where it might make sense to add some reference to the role of the staff in fulfilling those missions. Any objection to that from anyone? If we propose something, we'll bring it back to this committee for another look at our next meeting, but I just wanted to get the go ahead so that Cynthia and I could do that. Okay. Great. Anything else on the bylaws at this time? We still have some time. We just want to get a lot of runway ahead of time before so we can wordsmith it and ask if we need to go to anybody else for counsel on this. Be helpful. No? All right. Thank you. We'll conclude that piece. Sean, was there anything more that we should do on the strategic planning, the work groups and implementation phase?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest to Cynthia offline, we can talk about it now, about having a little planning workshop. When is Street Sense scheduled to come back, Cynthia? Did we set a date with them or an approximation of?
When we met with Larissa and Noor, I think I'd have to look back at my notes, but I thought that Larissa had thrown out April.
Yeah,
Then you had brought up when the clock starts ticking on the 3 months, and we suggested it's when the working groups start to meet.
right.
The board packet for Thursday has suggested working groups in the implementation matrix that Kyle and I reviewed. So that's kind of where we are. Well, not kind of, that is where we are.
Yeah, so if the clock starts at the board meeting,
Mhm.
then I'd like to have some sort of follow-up discussion before Street Sense comes in April. If the clock doesn't start until Street Sense comes in April, which I don't think it would be the case, but if that is the case, then it wouldn't be as essential to me.
So I'm sorry, Sean. So
Mhm.
Larissa was gonna come back in 3 months and 6 months, I think.
Oh, so are you saying April is the 3-month mark?
Well, it was when we closed it out in
I
January with
see.
them, but since we have to determine when the 3 months really starts, I mean, I think Noor had it like a different, and Larissa's like pushing it out, so I don't think we have not solidified when that time is. let's
Okay,
put it that way.
okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
that's good then. So I'd like to have a follow-up meeting after the board meeting. We can talk about when it makes sense for them to come back and for the clock to start. Because in my mind, it hasn't started yet. And really, I don't think it starts until we get to this next phase of normalcy, which hopefully is on our doorstep.
Do you want to do that with you, me and Kyle, or did you want to do that with this group or with the board or?
Oh, I whatever respects everyone's time. I just want to, I guess what the rationale is to just make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position to succeed and set expectations properly. Not knowing what will be discussed on Thursday with the board and what will result from that. I'm just generally thinking it would be good for some of us anyway on governance to be on the same page. I don't know if all of us need to meet, but I'm happy to all meet too.
Well, I think, Sean, that after the meeting Thursday, you guys determine it, and if you want governance to meet and discuss whatever it is you want discussed, we can certainly do that. I don't see a problem with that, even if it's a special meeting, not one of our regular ones.
Okay.
You know, a meeting just devoted to that.
Yeah, well, honestly, Betsy, you raise a valid point that there might be some moments of heavy lift for this committee along the way and implementing things that we may actually need to carve out separate meetings outside of the regular governance meetings. I don't know. I guess we'll just wait and see, but
yeah,
because everything's going to be filtering through us.
Yeah.
And how many of us are there if we add Kyle? How many members is governance? Is it just, are
I'm
we
just
missing anybody?
pulling
today?
my cheat sheet out.
Well, you know, it
Seven.
used to be us plus Steve Bacon and then Sam Bruder. So Sam rotated off, but I don't know if Brian has a committee assignment yet.
Yeah, I don't think he's told me what he wants to do yet. Yeah, so it's 7 right now.
Okay, that's a good size group.
For these work groups, we can go off. It doesn't have to be board members, right?
No, I just put together, Diane and Betsy probably got the board packet too, but some suggestions off the last meeting. So definitely, especially like the marketing ones and the events. I think some of the other ones, and Frank, I'm not sure if Kyle spoke to you yet, but like the funding one is going to require less people, Kyle thought. It just needs to be a down and dirty,
Focus message.
Thank you.
Direct asks, right? It's not a broad campaign.
Right.
Right. I think it's a different approach.
So the thinking is right now, yeah.
Yep.
But definitely Sean likes the marketing, the public spaces. I mean, that's a down and dirty right there, I think.
Yep.
And we have some money available to us and potentially some other money if we, from the property owners, at least one of them.
Yeah.
We're gonna build a fence right at Dog Lane Cafe, so there's no one crossing that street anymore.
Prabhas, did you have your hand up at one point, or are you just adjusting your? All right, I wasn't sure if I missed you. Anything else then that we should, so that you'll discuss this on Thursday? Will it come up in the executive session, the executive committee?
We don't have, the only one it could, so we have one scheduled for April 7th, which is for my evaluation. But we could bring that on. I mean, maybe it makes sense for Sean and Kyle and I to chat either right after the board meeting or the next day or whatever's convenient.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that what you were kind of thinking, Sean, and Frank too? As chair of
Sounds good.
governments, yeah.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Strategic planning or otherwise? No. Thank you all for participating. I really appreciate your sticking in. Prabhas, good luck with this is your last midterms you have to worry about. All right. For now. Who knows? Grad school.
Grad school is a while away. I made it through midterm week, so now it's not necessarily smooth sailing, but it's smoother sailing. We'll see.
So boss, where are you going to grad school?
That's undecided. That will probably
Okay.
be in a few years. The
Okay.
return to school isn't what I'm looking
Alright.
forward to after graduating. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated, of course.
Okay,
There's a
Feel
lot
free
of-
to
Go ahead.
bring it back to the governance agenda and we'll debate it, all right?
okay.
You know, Prabhas, there's a lot of choices, but there's only one right choice. And their school colors are blue and white.
Yeah, I knew where you're going with that pretty early in the statement, but I don't disagree. So give me a little bit of time to find my footing, and then we'll figure it out as we go.
Your choice will be the right choice.
That's right.
Of course,
Well,
of
yes.
course.
Well, thanks, everybody. I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Betsy? The boss is second. All in favor? Thank you very much. The meeting is closed. Have a great evening.
See you Thursday.
You too.
See you
Thank you.
Thursday.
Bye-bye, all.
Bye-bye.